We asked our panel what's in store for the year 2014, and here's my third and final part of my conversation with financial expert Jennifer Streaks, management consultant Anjon Roy, and accountant and author Ebong Eka.
Bringing more value to the economy is what's going to be important on an individual basis in order to find more jobs, make more money, and to also put more money into the economy.
The unemployment rate is now at 7%, significantly lower than it was at the beginning of 2013. Why are there so many critics still out there saying that the economy isn't good? There are still people who are unemployed. There seems to be a lot more focus on the negatives rather than the positives. Correct me if I'm wrong.
Well, no, there is a huge focus on the negatives. The economy is moving, but it's still sputtering. We have to be honest about that. There's still a large segment of the population that is unemployed, and you can't ignore those facts. And I think that's why there's still this focus as we go into 2014. I would like to see these companies that have sort of put the money on the shelf come out and say, we're going to actually hire. You see positions that are open and have been advertised for 3-6 months, and they're still not hiring. Get out here and hire these people and pull them off the street, pull them out of the unemployment ranks. They're ready to work.
One of the criticisms I saw was the fact that a lot of people are, if you're not looking for work, you're not being counted as the unemployed. And they're saying that there's a large group of individuals here in the United States that have given up looking for work. I don't know if it's true. The numbers seem to indicate that there is some truth to that. How do we read this figure?
Well, I think that looking ahead and looking at where we are, the economy is getting better, but the reason people are complaining is it's still very weak. For starters, inequality numbers are at their worst we've seen in generations, and where much of the gains have gone to a very small portion of the population, at least disproportionately, well beyond their well beyond their, how much they represent as a percentage of the population. And wages have been stagnating. They've been stagnating throughout this since the 2008 crash, and they've been stagnating frankly for a generation. Inflation-adjusted wages have barely moved in decades, except for a short window in the mid to late 90s. So I think the reason people are complaining is that there's still a lot to be complaining about. With that said, look to your initial question, looking ahead to 2014, I think things will probably get a little better. One of the key things Jennifer said was that consumer balance sheets are in better shape. And we've been through a pretty massive deleveraging cycle since the 2008 crash. And the numbers I'm seeing out there, and from what I'm hearing from talking to folks like Jennifer, and she's going to know more about this than I, is that consumer balance sheets are in better shape. And if that's the case, you might start to see some type of self-sustaining growth in the economy. But again, without real wage increases, sustained wage increases, I don't see any type of self-sustaining growth being all that strong. Because I think that's the key element. We
live in a capitalistic society, so a business will spend money when they feel there's a need to. They're not going to hire for the sake of hiring. So the idea that we tie either wages to CEO pay or businesses out there should be just hiring for the sake of hiring, that doesn't happen. And if you have a small business, I'm not going to hire somebody just because I know they're unemployed. I'm going to hire them because I know that I can get exponential amount of value from them. So if I'm paying them $10 an hour, I can get $50 an hour out of their productivity. If that's not the case, I'm not going to hire. It's better for me to put my money in my pocket. Until the people who are unemployed, whether it's through new educational programs, whether it's through changing their job, their existing skills, and maybe changing to another skill of need, we're not going to see any change. And so the idea that we have to just raise wages for the sake of raising them is almost basically ludicrous. That's not going to happen.
I want to give each of you a chance to close out this discussion in 2014. We've covered a lot of different topics. We've covered a lot of issues. I'd like each of you to go over perhaps the greatest positive surprise that we might see in 2014 and also your greatest concern or the negative surprises we might see. Let's start with you, Anjon.
I think the positive surprise is that we will start seeing self-sustaining economic growth. I think the key word that Ebong just said was customers, and that you need without customers, if the businesses don't see customers, they're not going to hire. And most customers, unless if you're super serving the wealthy and ultra wealthy, are not doing well because they don't. So the hope is that we're going to start to see some self-sustaining economic growth. Businesses will start seeing customers. They will start hiring. That will lead to more self-sustaining wage increases for the broad middle class. That's my hope. My fear is that we could see if the Fed tapering, if the Fed tapers quickly, the markets could overreact, and we could see a very large, significant drop in the stock market because, there's some who say that we have a bubble or maybe a mini bubble there, and that's a whole nother debate by, looking at price to earnings versus price to revenue ratios, and the latter looks like it might be bubbly, the former no. So that would be my fear, that we get a crash or a mini crash, but my hope is that won't happen, but my optimistic size hopes for a self-sustaining economic expansion.
Jennifer, your predictions on the positive and the negatives we might see next year.
So the positives is that I think that we're going to continue to see consumers taking control of their own balance sheets, being more involved, being more knowledgeable about what is going on with their finances, and I am loving that. What I think is disappointing is that you had a Congress that did not pay attention to Main Street at all this year, and I hope that that turns around next year. And when I say a continued surge in consumer confidence and knowledge, it's like Main Street took their power and said, we're going to do it for ourselves. We're going to start saving money. We're going to start shopping more competitively. We're going to start looking for those deals and saving our money so that we're not dependent on Congress while they're going through all these shenanigans.
Ebong, last word.
I think there's two. The positive is going to be that we're going to see more entrepreneurship. People are going to be more entrepreneurial about their careers, their lives, entrepreneurs as well as entrepreneurs. The negative, depending on what side of the aisle you sit, is going to be the midterm elections to see who's going to pay for last year or this past year's debt ceiling and the government shutdown.
My special thanks to Jennifer Streaks, Anjon Roy, and of course Ebong Eka for our candid discussion on what happened this year and what's to come next year.